You can be favored and still be rejected. You can be obedient and still suffer injustice. You can walk with God and still not see the dream right away. Joseph had a dream, but instead of applause, he was met with betrayal. His own brothers couldn't stand the vision God gave him. He was stripped of his coat, thrown into a pit, and sold like property, and still ended up right where God wanted him. This isn't just a story of a boy with a dream. It's the story of what happens when that dream cost you everything. And maybe that's where you are. Maybe you've been faithful, but it feels like your life is getting worse. Maybe the people who were supposed to support you have rejected you. Maybe your coat was taken, your voice silenced, your reputation ruined. But if you're still breathing, God isn't done. Joseph shows us that favor doesn't always look like success at first, but favor never stops moving. Not everyone will celebrate your calling. Not everyone can handle your favor. And sometimes it's your own family that throws you away. Joseph wasn't just one of Jacob's sons. He was the favorite, born from Rachel, the woman Jacob really loved. Joseph carried the kind of affection and attention that his brothers never got. And Jacob didn't hide it. He made Joseph a robe of many colors, a long, elegant coat symbolizing honor, inheritance, and leadership. In a family of shepherds, Joseph wore something royal, and he didn't take it off. So when Joseph started sharing his dreams, the kind where everyone else bowed to him, his brothers weren't just irritated. They were enraged. And back then, being sold as a slave wasn't just rejection, it was removal. You lost your name, your freedom, your status. You became a number, a shadow of the life you once had. But here's the tension. Joseph's dream didn't die in the pit. God's plan wasn't canceled by cruelty. It was just being rerouted through pain. So what does this mean for you? Maybe God has marked you with favor, but it's drawn more jealousy than support. Maybe you were just excited to share your vision, but now you feel punished for even having one. Maybe someone took your coat, your voice, your identity, your safe place, and left you in a pit wondering if God still sees you. But hear this clearly. Favor isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like rejection, but it's actually God pulling you into protection. Joseph made mistakes. He was immature. He flaunted what God gave him before he was ready to carry the weight of it. But when he mishandled the moment, God still honored the dream. Because God doesn't throw you away when you're unpolished. He refines you through the fire. What do you do when doing the right thing leads to everything going wrong? What if obeying God cost you the people you love the most? Joseph had a dream, two actually. Dreams where his brothers, his parents, even the sun and moon bowed down to him. But instead of encouragement, he got envy. Instead of protection, he got betrayal. In Genesis chapter 37, verse 6 through 7, dream number 1, he said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." Genesis chapter 37, verse 9, dream number 2. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." This wasn't just random symbolism. Everyone knew what it meant. The brothers would bow, the parents would bow, Joseph would be lifted up. But instead of guarding this dream, Joseph shared it proudly. He was 17. He wore the robe of many colors, a gift from his father that no one else received, a symbol of honor and inheritance. He spoke like someone who hadn't yet learned that timing matters and favor can draw fire. And that was the tipping point. His brothers hated him more because of it. They weren't just jealous of the coat, they were enraged by the dream. His brothers plotted to kill him. He was stripped of his coat, a visible reminder of his father's love and God's promise. He was thrown into a pit and then sold to strangers for silver. So here is some hidden gold. God allowed the pit, but he never abandoned the promise. The same God who gave the dream was still active, even when Joseph lost everything else, because God's plan doesn't die in betrayal, it begins in it. Then and now, maybe you've been misunderstood. Maybe you shared your passion, your vision, your calling, and people turned on you for it. Maybe your own family couldn't handle your favor. Or maybe someone stripped you of what made you feel safe, seen, or called. But listen, the pit is not where the dream ends. Sometimes is where God prunes the pride, silences the noise, and builds the strength you need in the palace later. God never wastes pain, and he never loses track of the one he favors, no matter how far people try to bury them. When I go through struggles and trials, I think of Joseph and how God was with him, even though Joseph probably didn't think he was. Joseph was ripped away from his home, but he wasn't abandoned. He was betrayed by his brothers, but he wasn't forsaken. He was sold into slavery, but the favor of God never left him. Genesis chapter 39, verse 2 through 4. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. His master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did. Even in a foreign land, Joseph served Potiphar with honor and excellence. He didn't let bitterness harden him. He didn't let injustice define him. And for a moment, it looked like things were turning around until the next betrayal came. Potiphar's wife wanted Joseph, and day after day she tried to seduce him. Joseph refused. Genesis chapter 39, verse 9. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? But his purity didn't protect him from pain. She falsely accused him, and without a trial, Joseph was thrown into prison. Now, imagine this. You were faithful. You honored God. You said no to temptation. And now you're in a prison cell alone, no family, no friends, no voice. God, if you gave me that dream, why am I here? Was that even you who showed it to me? Did I mishear? Did I do something wrong? Where are you? We read Joseph's story knowing the ending, but Joseph did it. And all he had was a memory of a dream in the silence of the prison. And that's why you might relate to him more than you realize. Because sometimes it feels like doing right just leads to more suffering. Like being pure makes life harder. Like saying yes to God should have come with protection, but all you got was pain. Genesis chapter 39, verse 21. The Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. Joseph was thrown down again, but God lifted him again. He served in the prison like he did in the palace. He interpreted dreams of Pharaoh's officials. And when he asked the cupbearer to remember him, he was forgotten again. 2 more years, no recognition, no reward, still in the dark, still waiting. Here is some hidden gold to take from this. God's promise doesn't expire in the pit. His favor isn't canceled in the prison, and his plan isn't broken by betrayal. Just because your surroundings look like failure doesn't mean your calling is finished. Joseph wasn't being punished. He was being prepared. Sometimes the silence isn't abandonment. It's God building a character strong enough to carry the dream. Then and now. Have you ever obeyed God and still ended up alone? Been faithful and still lost everything? Served others and still got forgotten? Let Joseph remind you, God doesn't leave you in the prison. The dream wasn't a lie. This isn't your end, it's your middle. And when I go through struggles and trials, I think of Joseph, because even though he was chosen and favored, I bet he didn't feel like it when he was sitting in that cell. But God was with him, and God is with you too. Joseph didn't just rise, he was summoned. After years of silence, years of being forgotten, and years of doing right with no reward, Pharaoh has a dream that no one can interpret. And suddenly, Joseph's name is remembered. I know someone, the cupbearer says. Joseph is brought out of prison, cleaned up, and brought before Pharaoh. And once again, he doesn't promote himself. He points to God. Genesis chapter 41, verse 16. I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. Joseph interprets the dream with bold clarity and offers a wise plan for Egypt's survival. Pharaoh sees the Spirit of God in him and places him second in command of Egypt. He's no longer the forgotten one. He's the one everyone comes to for help. But the story doesn't end there. The famine spreads, and one day his brothers walk in, hungry, desperate, not recognizing him. They were the ones who betrayed him, abandoned him, sold him like he was nothing. Now here they are, bowing before the very dream they once mocked. And Joseph has a choice. He could punish, he could reveal himself, he could get revenge. But instead, he weeps because this was never just about power. This was about healing. Joseph doesn't immediately reveal who he is. He tests them first, not to be cruel, but to see if their hearts had changed. When he finally breaks and tells them who he is, the moment is overwhelming. Genesis chapter 45, verse 4 through 5. I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed. Do not be angry with yourself for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. Can you imagine the emotional weight of that moment? Forgiving the very people who tried to erase you. Standing face to face with those who ripped your life apart. Instead of demanding payment, you offer grace. Even later, after their father Jacob died, his brothers still didn't believe he had really forgiven them. They sent messengers with a made-up story begging for mercy again. And Joseph wept all over again. Genesis chapter 50, verse 19 through 21. Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. Joseph's forgiveness wasn't a moment. It was a decision he had to walk out again and again. Joseph's decision didn't just save his brothers, it saved Israel. Because of Joseph's position and compassion, his family was brought to safety in Egypt. The family line of Abraham, the promise God gave, was preserved through Joseph's obedience and surrender. Here's more hidden gold. Joseph's story reminds us God can still complete the dream, even when someone else forgets it. What others meant for harm, God can repurpose for healing. You don't have to be in power to be favored. God's hand on your life is power enough. Then and now. Have you ever had to forgive someone who never really said sorry? Have you ever looked at your scars and wondered, why did I have to go through this? Joseph's story tells us God can bring you to the other side stronger, softer, and still full of purpose. You may have been broken, but you're not abandoned. You may have been used, but you're still chosen. Maybe the person who hurt you the worst was part of the process God orchestrated for your good. And if you truly believed that, forgiveness wouldn't feel like a loss, it would feel like a relief. Your dream may not look like what you thought, but if you stay with God, it will still do what it was meant to do. Joseph's story isn't spotless. It begins with favor, but is mixed with naivety and lack of wisdom. And those things had consequences, like boasting about his dreams. Joseph didn't ask for the dreams God gave him, but instead of holding them in prayer or seeking wise counsel, he rushed to share them with his already jealous brothers. Genesis chapter 37, verse 6 through 7. Listen to this dream I had. He shared not once, but twice, dreams that clearly placed him above his entire family. God's faithfulness. Even though Joseph's timing and delivery lacked maturity, God didn't take the dream away. The dream still lived because God is bigger than our youthful arrogance. He used it all to shape Joseph for the day the dream will be fulfilled in humility, not pride. Then wearing the coat and the pressure that came with it. Joseph wore the special robe his father gave him. This robe wasn't just fabric. It was a statement, a public sign of favoritism. By wearing it openly, Joseph unintentionally fueled the division in his family. That coat made him stand out, but it also made him a target. God's faithfulness. Even when favoritism fractured the family, even when the coat was stripped from him and soaked in lies, God was covering Joseph in something far more powerful than cloth: purpose. Trusting the cupbearer to remember him. Joseph interpreted the dreams of two men in prison. He asked the cupbearer to remember him when he got out, but the man forgot for 2 full years. Joseph hoped man would open the door, but only God could. God's faithfulness. Even when Joseph was forgotten by people, he was remembered by God, and not one moment was wasted. God didn't let Joseph hope in man stop his divine timing. Now here's some hidden gold. Your immaturity won't cancel God's calling. It'll refine it. Being favored doesn't mean being flawless. It means being forged. Just because people forget you doesn't mean God has. Joseph's life didn't look like the dream, not for a long time. It looked like rejection. It looked like injustice. It looked like he was being punished for doing the right thing. He lost his freedom, his family, his reputation, and still God was with him. So when life feels unfair, when your name is misunderstood, when the people you helped forget you, remember Joseph and remember what you asked earlier. If God gave him that dream, how did it feel to sit in a prison alone for something he didn't even do? Maybe you're sitting in a season like that right now, where nothing looks like what God said. But he hasn't changed his mind about you. So, when life feels unfair, when your name is misunderstood, when the people you helped forget you, remember Joseph and remember what you asked earlier. If God gave him that dream, how did it feel to sit in a prison alone for something he didn't even do? Maybe you're sitting in a season like that right now, where nothing looks like what God said, but he hasn't changed his mind about you. Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Your life might not make sense yet, but that doesn't mean God isn't working it together for purpose. Don't abandon the dream because the journey hurts. God is still writing your story, and just like Joseph, you will rise with grace, forgiveness, and divine favor.